Hello, welcome back, everybody. I have another beautiful episode today, and with me today is the lovely Leah. So, Leah, tell us about your preparation for your birth.
Okay, so as part of our preparation, we did the Transform Parenting course with you, Tracy.
Yeah.
Um, so that was really cool. My husband and I guess we didn't we didn't really know much about birth other than people we knew had had babies and we'd heard their stories and everything, but we're both, I guess, planners, and so we thought, let's do some planning and let's try and find
Mm,
out as much as we can, because we didn't want to go into it not knowing, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Do you remember how
Yeah.
you felt prior to that? Were you afraid of birth, or were you looking forward to it? What was your feeling prior to doing my course?
Um, we were both really nervous. Like most of the stories that we'd both heard about birth were that it was really scary and really
Mm,
painful. Um, and sort of look, I don't know, that typical thing of people just telling you what goes wrong and the terrible things about birth.
yeah.
So yeah, we were both coming into it quite nervous. I know my husband was coming into it sort of feeling like he didn't really have a role in the birth other than to just be there.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that was how we were feeling.
Yeah. Do you recall, because one of the things I love about, teaching this sort of work is watching people make those sort of internal changes and shifts about the way they think and feel. Do you recall anything that really struck you, that really shifted your perception and changed the way you felt?
Um, I think just probably, I don't know if there was one particular thing, but I know about halfway through the first day, because it's obviously a 2-day course,
Mm,
we went away for the break, and my husband Chris and I were just talking to each other about it. And we both just realized we'd started the day feeling quite nervous. And by
mm,
that first day, like at lunchtime, we were both like, we're really excited for this now. Like it had
mm,
already started to shift so quickly. And I don't know if it was just I think we were speaking a lot about like the things that he can do and what's
mm.
going to happen, and um, that it doesn't have to be this horrible thing, and like there's this like different scales of how you can feel. I think you spoke through, there was some examples of like people who thought it was a scale from
Yeah.
orgasmic to like really painful.
Excruciating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sort of saying like this is where most people sat, and it was like somewhere in the middle, or
Yeah.
maybe even more towards the better end,
Mm,
slightly. So even just, I think people are so quick to tell you that it's really painful, but we
mm,
hadn't heard any stories of it
mm,
being this really amazing experience. So
mm,
maybe just hearing about other experiences and the different things that can happen, and yeah,
mm.
it just changed us both like within a few hours we went from being
Yeah.
nervous to being really excited about it.
Yeah. So, what you're talking about there for those people listening is what I call the pain continuum. And so, the pain continuum is just this understanding that everybody experiences labor and birth differently. And every time you have a baby, it's a slightly different sensation. Now, this is not something you can control necessarily, because you know the position of the baby and how hard they're pushing on the cervix, their little heads, and what position that's in. Um, Hydration, fatigue, all these other things can influence the way a woman experiences the sensations. But one of the things that we do know is that the more relaxed a woman is in labour, the more manageable labour becomes. So labour can be everything from excruciating to painful to manageable to painless. Women who talk about painless labour usually use words like, I wouldn't call it pain, it's more like intense pressure. It's a very broad feeling because it's your uterus contracting. And then, of course, women can have orgasms and go into states of ecstasy during childbirth. And the reason that's possible is because when you look at the biochemical makeup of birth, that hormonal cocktail, a lot of those hormones are really feel-good hormones. I call them performance-enhancing hormones. So oxytocin, that loving, bonding, feel-good hormone, feeling connected, that endorphins are the body's natural opiates, and prolactin, a very relaxing hormone, getting you ready to feed your baby. And a bit of adrenaline at the end gives you that extra surge of energy that you need. So it's making the most of those hormones by staying relaxed. So when people start to understand that and understand that there are possibilities in labour, it can really shift the way they think. Whereas, and I often make this sort of draw this social observation that I've made is if I was to say the word childbirth to most people, the first word that they would think of is pain. Whereas I like to point out to people that childbirth, the pain is a byproduct. It's just a detail. Childbirth is really about having a baby. And when we shift our focus to that and recognize that we can influence it by staying relaxed and anchoring ourselves to our breathing, we can experience it really, really differently. So I think what Leah's describing there, darling, is where you really started to shift your perception of, what was possible, that it's not just the worst day of your life and you have to just get through it.
Yeah.
And that's purely, that first day is very much about understanding the process of how it works. Yeah. Big, powerful muscle doing a big, powerful job.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think you said something, one of the first things you might have said was about, I think there was like a doctor who he was viewing women in labor, and
Yeah.
I think he was like in England, and he was yeah, a lot of women in Western societies were experiencing so much pain in labor, and then he
Yeah.
went to like I think it was somewhere in
Yeah,
Africa.
that's right.
Yeah, and the women there, like they were experiencing labor so differently. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was really a perception thing about,
Mm,
we hear these stories of
yeah.
labor being painful and yeah, this horrible day that you just have to get
Mm,
through. But in other cultures, like pregnancy and labor and giving birth is
mm,
so celebrated, and
yeah.
the experiences of the women giving birth in those cultures is so different.
Yeah, that's right. And mindset is a huge thing. So that cultural conditioning that we grow up with, and the way you felt coming in is that you just heard so many negative stories. Well, of course you're going to feel
Mm,
nervous and anxious, and your subconscious is going, there's got to be a different way to do this.
yeah.
Look for answers, please, Leah, because I don't like the idea of this giving birth business, and that's going to create a stress response in labour. So, yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
like you had a big shift.
Yeah.
So, tell us about the rest of your pregnancy and the lead up to the birth. What was that like?
So I had a pretty good pregnancy. Like I didn't really suffer with any sickness or anything like that. As my pregnancy went on, I did have a bit of pelvic pain,
Mm-hmm.
just in the pelvic girdle. So I did see a physio throughout my pregnancy, and they just did some like stretching and massage and everything, which was great.
Did that help?
It definitely helped.
Yeah.
And I felt like because I was in a fair bit of pain in my hips and everything,
Mm.
people would say, oh, just go and get a pregnancy massage, which was good. But seeing a physio, like I felt like they could
Mm.
really get into the muscles, and they
Yeah.
were really comfortable with the muscles, and could really help. And they like taped me up and everything too. So that was really
Mm.
good. And I think the earlier you do that, the more beneficial it is throughout your labor. And
Mm.
then also as I got closer to like my giving birth, they started to do a bit more birth prep. So like really working into my hips and releasing the muscles and making sure everything, like I had good mobility and I was
Mm.
comfortable. So that was really good.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And then you got to 36 weeks and something happened. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So we got to the 36-week point, and it was funny. I remember I woke up, my appointment was on the Monday, and I woke up on the Sunday morning and I could feel that the baby had completely changed positions.
Mm.
And I had a lot of pain up under my ribs on one side. And I just, like I remember saying to Chris, the baby's moved. And I feel like I knew in my heart that the baby had potentially flipped up and was in the breech position, but I think I was in a bit of denial about it because like everything was going so well. I was ready. I was feeling really excited about the birth and everything, and it was coming so close. And then the baby had moved, but I was like, no, maybe their foot's just in a funny position. I have
Yeah.
my appointment tomorrow. I'll just wait and see. So we had the appointment, and it was talking about my birth plan and what we wanted to do. So we went through all of that, and like I had said to my midwife, I think the baby's changed positions, and she was like, oh, that's okay. We'll check it all at the end. Like, don't worry. So we went through my birth plan. I spoke about like wanting, hoping to have a vaginal birth, hoping to be able to get in and out of the bath and do all these things. And then it got to the end of the appointment, and she was like, okay, we'll just feel what the baby's doing. And she felt, and she was like, oh,
Uh,
maybe that is a head up under your ribs. And so she was feeling around, and she couldn't tell definitely, but she said we might get a doctor in just to see.
mm,
And this was the first time that I'd had any involvement with a doctor throughout the pregnancy because
yeah.
everything had just been completely normal. So the doctor came in, had a feel, and said, "Yep, I think that's head up now. So we'll do a quick ultrasound and see what's happening." And they did an ultrasound and confirmed the baby was definitely head up. And it was, I feel like everything really changed then because,
Mhm.
especially having the doctor involved, because as soon as they felt that the baby was head up, the doctor started talking about cesarean, which like I just hadn't even considered at that
Mhm.
point because everything had gone well. Um, they spoke about potentially doing an ECV where they turn the baby, but everything they said kept going back to cesarean. So they said you'll need to get an ultrasound to check that we can even do an ECV because if the cord's too short, if the baby's in a funny position, if the cord's wrapped around the baby, we
Yeah.
might not even be able to turn it, and then you'll need a cesarean. If you, even if we do turn the baby, there's a chance it'll flip back, and then you'll need a cesarean. Even if we do flip the baby and it stays head down, there's still a high chance you'll need a cesarean. And it
Wow.
just kept going back to that. Um, and so, like, I feel like I was just in a bit of a state of shock. Like, I just wasn't expecting it at all. And the doctor left. So they booked me in to get a more detailed ultrasound so they could check everything. And the doctor left, and my midwife sort of looked at me and she was like, "Are you okay?" Um, and I was like, "Yeah, like I guess so. I don't really know. I need some time to absorb this." And
Yeah.
she was really good, my midwife. She really reassured me, and she was like, I know the doctors just said all this stuff about cesareans, and we've just spoken through your birth plan, and obviously that wasn't part of your birth plan. But she said in her experience and the women that she had worked with, it didn't always end in a cesarean. Um,
Mhm.
and she was really great, and she spoke through potentially like if they couldn't turn the baby and the baby was in a good position, she would be happy to support a breech birth, but
Mhm.
potentially I wouldn't be able to do that at the same hospital that I was in because she didn't think
Right.
there were many doctors there that would support a breech birth. Um, so yeah, it was just all these things just changed so
Yeah.
quickly, and I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting it at all. Um,
It's
and
hard to
yeah,
know how to navigate those situations, isn't it?
yeah,
Because, you know, we as women, we get told don't get too fixated on things, and we kind of know that, but it doesn't stop
yeah,
us really from having a vision or an ideal around how we want to welcome our baby into the world. And when things come in from left field like that, it is a when I often talk to women in that situation, I say, this is great practice for you. Like this is the mystery that you're walking into, and you're being given the opportunity now to readjust your thinking that you might not end up where you think you're going to go. But the goal is to make the most of whatever situation that you're in. But we're human, you know, so giving voice to the disappointment, the frustration, all these decisions, what is this going to mean, how is this going to change things, and all of that uncertainty. So just can you talk a little bit about how you recalibrated to all of that information to then go ahead and make decisions? Like, what was that like?
So we got home, and I was pretty upset. So I sort of in the hospital, I think just was in a bit of shock, and like I didn't really know what to think. And then as soon as we got home, I cried a lot, because I was like, this isn't what I'd planned for. And I thought through the whole pregnancy as well. Like I was like, no, I'm ready for whatever happens. Like something that really resonated with me as well in the course that we did with you was you said about like the different interventions and changes and like medical procedures that can occur during labor. Like generally they happen because it's the safest option for you and your baby. And in a country like Australia, we're really lucky that we do have all these options. And so in my head, I was thinking, well, up until this point, I was thinking, if something goes wrong and I do need a cesarean or I do need other interventions or whatever, I'm really lucky because they're doing it to keep me and my baby safe. And so I thought, I'd been saying that to myself the whole time. And I thought, no, I'm going to be fine during the labor because if something happens there, they're looking after me. And it was just such a shock that it happened at the 36-week point, and I found it really hard to accept that might be what happened. So I cried a lot. I think we had a catch up with you that week as well, and I told you that, and I think you said I need to have I think this is the wording you used, my fuck it moment, where I just think like where you just say, well, this is what it is, basically. I'm going to do it anyway. So we spoke about it a lot. I actually I booked in, so my ultrasound was going to be that week and they'd booked the ECV for the next week, so at 37 weeks. So I sort of had a week to try and get myself back on track. So I got some acupuncture as well. So I think I had about 2 sessions in that week. And the acupuncturist I went to, she was like really like holistic, I suppose. So she did some acupuncture and she actually did sort of some emotional stuff as well. Like she asked how I was feeling, why I was so, and I said I was really upset about it. And she really dug into like, why was I so upset about it? What was the issue? If I had to get a cesarean, why was I so upset about that? And in my head, I was telling myself it was because of the recovery, but I think she really drew it out of me. And it was because I felt like I really wanted to have the vaginal birth and go through the labor. And I felt like if I didn't get to do that, it's like I was missing out on the experience or something. And so she really spoke me through that and just spoke about being okay with that, and that it's not like you're not failing if this is the option you go to, like that ends up happening. You're still bringing your baby into the world. And we spoke about how I wanted to bring the baby into the world, and we spoke about doing it with love. So she sort of had this mantra with me, and she did the acupuncture, and sometimes we felt the baby sort of move while she was doing the acupuncture. And I thought, okay, maybe this will flip the baby before the ECV. And the baby didn't turn with the acupuncture. She did turn transverse, but she didn't fully move out of the breech position. But I think just that experience is really good mentally anyway, to sort of try and shift my thinking out of this really dark place into well, if this happens, it's still okay.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that part of your process, because and I know the acupuncturist you're talking about, she's very good. She is very holistic and sees that the body is and mind are very integrated. And so there's always going to be an emotional component to any type of physiological state we're in.
Yeah.
And when we work not just physically with women, but emotionally as well, and give voice to the disappointment, give voice to the, the loss of whatever you were worried you were going to lose in that process. Once you give voice to that and you bring those deeper subconscious, not always conscious feelings, thoughts, drivers out of you, then that's the first step in taking the energy away from that so that you can recalibrate to deal with your reality right here, right now. But when we don't give women the time and the space to explore how they're feeling in that situation, it can, the whole system can be out of balance when they're going through something.
Yeah, definitely. And I felt that as well, because some people I had told, oh, this is what's happening and this is what they're saying. A lot of the response, which I know people were trying to be helpful,
Yeah.
but it was quite dismissive. They would say, oh, well, that's what's your baby's going to be okay, and that's what matters the most.
Yeah.
And I know that matters a lot, but like I really think that I needed, like, how I was feeling mattered a lot as well.
Yeah.
And saying
Yeah.
things like that when I know people are trying to be helpful, but it can be really dismissive when you're going
Absolutely.
through something like that.
Yeah. And they're not taking into account that you've got a path to walk here. And so
Yeah,
there's going to be feelings. And when we dismiss that and don't give voice to that, we're ripping off the mother from
yeah,
appreciating, because I mean, we know it's all about the baby, healthy mum. That's a given. Like, of
yeah,
course, that's something we're concerned about. It's primarily in our mind, but there's other parts of us too that experience those changes that bring up things from within us as women, and that needs to be voiced as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's really, really powerful. So you went in for the ECV. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we went in for the ECV. So I was quite nervous. They had told me that obviously some people find it very painful. Most people just say it feels like a lot of pressure. Some people it's not painful at all. But yeah, basically it's where they turn the baby from the outside. Um, so we went into the hospital. I had to be put on a drip. Um, and basically they explained that they put this medication into you through the drip, and I think they said it's like an asthma medication or something like that, or it's similar to that, and it relaxes your uterus.
Mm-hmm.
But while it relaxes your uterus, it really increases your heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
So you sort of, it makes you feel a little bit anxious because you can feel your heart rate just really speed up. But yeah, it relaxes your uterus, and basically it only stays in your system for about 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to get the baby turned in a really short amount of time.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, yep, okay, here we go. So they put it in. I was with my husband. He was holding my hand through the whole thing. We had two doctors in. We had the registrar and a consultant. So they put it in. The registrar tried to flip the baby first. So she was sort of engaged, but down.
Right. So the
Um,
bum was really low. Yeah.
yeah. So they had to basically push into like my lower
Mm-hmm.
abdomen to try and disengage the baby. And then while they were doing that, try and actually flip the head down.
Yeah.
Um, so the registrar tried a few times and she couldn't. She disengaged the baby but couldn't turn her.
Mm-hmm.
So then the consultant just basically said, like, out of the way, I'll do it. So yeah, he just pushed, sort of grabbed the baby and just turned her around, and it took about probably less than a minute, and she was head down.
Wow.
So it worked. looking back at it now, like I wish my husband had filmed it, but I think if he did and it didn't work, like that would have just been the worst video ever. But because my husband explains it, that he says it looked like someone had a football inside a balloon and like just squeezed the balloon and flipped it. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could have seen that. But
Wow.
yeah.
What were you
So
doing
yeah.
during that? Were you closing your eyes or what were you doing?
Yeah, so I had my eyes closed. I was just trying to like breathe,
Yeah,
just
beautiful.
keep my breathing under control, which was
Mhm.
difficult because my heart rate was up so high and I could like feel my heart beating in my chest.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I just breathed, my midwife also was there and she was really great. She like I think as like a being tense, I like had my shoulders lifted up, and she
Mm,
was saying things like, relax your shoulders, relax your jaw, just
beautiful.
breathe. Like she was reminding me, just breathe and stay really relaxed. So it was really great having her there.
Mm.
And yeah, I didn't find it painful. It definitely felt like a lot of pressure, and it was uncomfortable, but it wasn't
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah.
Um, because I know it sounds like a really horrible procedure, and it's not, obviously not the nicest procedure, but it definitely wasn't as bad as I thought.
Mm.
Um,
That's good.
and it was over really quickly,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it was good.
Yeah. That's awesome. And your baby turned.
Yeah.
So your little girl turned head
Yes, she
down.
turned. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Cool. And did she stay down?
She did.
Beautiful.
So yeah, she turned and she stayed down like for the rest of the pregnancy. But I do remember I had another appointment the following week, and I did feel partway through the week before that, it felt like she had moved positions again.
Mm.
And it felt like I did have a bit of pressure up around my ribs again, but not quite the same as before. And I couldn't really feel if I could feel a head or a bum under my ribs.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if it was still just the mindset I was in. I was really nervous. And we went back and had like another appointment at the potentially, I think at the 38-week mark.
Mm.
And I said to my midwife, I'm really worried she's turned again. So my midwife felt around and she was like, no, she's like, it feels like the bum's still up. But she
Mm.
was like, I'll get the ultrasound machine and I'll do a check just so you have that peace of mind. But she was like, I'm 99.9% sure the
Yeah.
baby's still in the right position. So she did the check and the baby was still head down. So it
Mm.
was really good.
It's
But it was really
interesting.
good to have that reassurance anyway.
Yeah, we don't always know why babies get into not so good positions with breech. There's a, a group called Spinning Babies who've done a lot on helping to promote good positioning with babies' heads. And so for breech, they recommend making sure you've got good posture, your knees are lower than your hips. You give baby plenty of room to be happy head down, because if you're a bit of a sloucher and you have knees too high, that's going to put pressure on the head and they won't like it.
Yeah.
But the shape of the uterus, other theories are, babies who are breech like to be closer to their mother's hearts, which is always very nice. I
Yeah.
had to,
People kept
yeah,
saying that to me. I was like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
nice, but
That's nice, but I'd really
yeah,
rather them listen to
yeah,
me pee,
yeah,
not my
exactly.
heart rate.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, tell us about the birth, Leah. What was that like?
So I got to the 40-week mark. And I had always thought I I wouldn't go, like I put in quotations, overdue.
Yeah.
Um, because my mum said I'm one of three, and my mum had said she went 2 weeks early with all of us. Both
Mm.
my sisters have kids, and they all went it early. My mother-in-law, she had her two boys early.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, I was like, it's my first baby. Like I know you can really go anywhere between 40 and 42 weeks. Like
Mm.
I know I'll probably go past 40 weeks, but surely I'll go earlier. I just had that in my mind. And so I got to 40 weeks and I hadn't had a baby yet. Then I got to 41 weeks. I still hadn't had a baby. And by that point, I was starting to, I think, like each morning, sort of beyond 40 weeks, I'd wake up and think, oh, I'm still pregnant. No baby yet. And it got to 41 weeks, and I was meant to have an appointment that day. And I had spoken to my midwife about not wanting to be induced if I didn't have to, because I'd heard stories about lots of people just being induced because they got to that point, even though everything seemed fine with the baby. So I'd had that conversation with my midwife, and she was really supportive of that. And she said, like, she was a big advocate for not inducing people just for the sake of it. So she was on the same page as me, but she said, if we get to 41 weeks, we still have to, she was like, we should still book in that appointment and just talk about our options, check how baby's going, make sure everyone's still happy, and talk about our options beyond that point. So I had my appointment booked for 41 weeks. But that morning, I woke up at about 3 a.m. with contractions. And I'd had little sort of niggles before that, but these ones felt like they felt different. They felt stronger. So I just sort of laid in bed. I think I laid in bed for about 2 hours and could feel them on and off. I didn't wake my husband up or anything. And I think I was starting to sort of get a little bit uncomfortable. So I was moving around a little bit. And he woke up, and so I said, I think I'm starting to have contractions, but they were still really irregular and quite far apart, like 20 minutes or so. So I think we got up and just had our normal day. I think it got to about 9 a.m. and I was still having them on and off. So I messaged my midwife just to let her know, and I had been timing them, and they were about 20 minutes apart, and she said, stop timing them. She was like, don't worry about it. Just relax, go about your day. They're still quite far apart. So she was like, you don't want to be timing them and thinking about them all day. So I said, okay. And we just went about the day, and I think they stopped for a little while, for a couple of hours. So I was like, okay, maybe it was a false start. We'll just see. And then they picked up again that afternoon. And they were strong enough that I felt like I couldn't just keep going about my day. So, and my midwife had also said, okay, it does sound like maybe labor's starting. How about we cancel your appointment for today? So you don't have to come into the hospital. You can just stay at home. So we canceled that appointment. And then, it got into the night and they were a bit stronger. So I started having a few showers to help manage them. And then it got to about 11 o'clock that night. And I felt like they were getting closer and they were much stronger. So we gave my midwife a call. She spoke to my husband, and then she asked to speak to me. I had a chat to her, and she was like, okay, like, it's all sounding really good. Can I talk to Chris again? And she spoke to Chris, and apparently she said to Chris, I don't think we're far enough along yet. She was like, your job is keep her at home, keep her comfortable, and just keep supporting her. So he got off the phone and he was like, let's just stay here a bit longer. We'll see what happens. So I kept having contractions on and off, and I felt like they were strong enough that I wasn't very comfortable lying down or anything. So I just stayed in the shower. I had like one of those big yoga balls in the shower with me. So I just had the hot water on my back and just chilled out in there for a while. And then I think eventually I got back into bed at maybe about 2 a.m. And they were strong enough that I felt like I couldn't sleep. But I eventually did drift off to sleep for a couple of hours. And then I woke up at maybe about 6 a.m. and was still having contractions, and messaged my midwife that morning and just said, yep, still having contractions. And she said, why don't you come into the hospital today about 11? We'll just see what's happening. We'll just make sure everyone's okay. So we went into the hospital. We took our bags in because we were like, maybe we won't go home, but we'll just see. And she checked the baby. And by this point, the contractions were starting to get stronger. Like, I couldn't talk through them. I had to really stop what I was doing and just focus on the contractions each time they came. And so we got up into the hospital. We saw the midwife. She checked the baby. She checked the heart rate and everything, and she was like, yep, baby sounds really happy. She was like, I can tell now, like you're not able to talk through the contraction, so it does seem like you're progressing a bit more. And she offered to do an exam, and because we had spoken about throughout when I go into labor, if I don't want an exam, I don't need one. So she said, like, it's up to me. If I want one, I can have one. And I chose to have one. And so she had, she checked, and she said I was 3 centimeters. So she was like, she was like, that's the hardest part, to get to 3 centimeters. So she was like, you're there, and that's really good. But I hadn't really slept much in like the last 2 days. So she said what she would recommend is she gave me some Panadeine Fort and temazepam, I think is a sleeping tablet. She said, go home, have these, try and get some sleep. And she was like, then when you wake up, you'll be rested and it'll be nearly time for the baby to come. So we were a little bit disappointed she was recommending to go home, because we were hoping that was it. But so, yeah, we went home, had the tablets, and we managed to get about 2 hours of sleep. And then it was the afternoon then, and we woke up, and because we'd sort of been lounging around the house, my husband was like, all right, it's time to change it up. When we woke up, he was like, we're going to put music on, we're going to dance, we're going to move around the house, like, let's just change it up and see what happens. So we put music on, and we stood in the kitchen, and I sort of leaned over the bench and sort of swayed through each contraction that I had. And then I ended up having a bath as well, which was really good. I found the water was really good for me during the contractions. And then I think it got to about 6:30 p.m. and I was like, no, I was like, these are getting much stronger now. I don't want to be at home anymore. I want to go in. I think it's nearly time. So we called my midwife, and she'd actually just gone into theatre with another woman who was birthing. But she was like, if you can stay at home, stay at home. But if you can't come in, I just might not be there yet. So we stayed at home for maybe another 20 minutes. And I was like, no, I don't feel like I can sit in the car. Like, I feel like if I get in the car, it's going to be too hard. I don't want to leave it any longer. Let's just go. So we ended up just going, called the midwife. She was still in theatre with another woman. So she said, I'll send my partner midwife. She'll meet you at the birth centre. So we got into the birth centre. They ran the bath, and I basically just jumped into the bath straight away. And I stayed in there for a couple of hours and kept having contractions. And then it got to maybe about 8:30, and my contractions really started to slow down again. And I was like, oh, I'm just like, I've been doing this for nearly 2 days now. What, like, is it slowing down again? Like, what does this mean? And the midwife said, because my waters hadn't broken, and she said, potentially we could break your waters. That might speed things up. Like you have been contracting for a while, you're in active labor. She's like, that's probably the only thing I could recommend that we do to try and speed things up. But my midwife happened to be next door with the other woman who had just given birth. So she was like, I'll just go quickly run it past her, make sure she's happy with it, come back. And she came back, and she was like, yep, she's happy with it. If you're happy with it, let's do it. So I said, okay. So I jumped out of the bath and got onto the bed, and she broke my waters. And then from that point on, it did really suddenly pick up again. And that was probably the most intense part of my labor. That's when I felt the contractions were the hardest to manage at that point. They just got really intense, and I felt like I couldn't get into a position that was comfortable. But they just kept coming, and I just got back into the bath and was just trying to work through them. And we had our music playing the whole time as well, which was really good. And then my midwife ended up coming back in. She finished up with the other woman, came in, and they swapped over. And then I felt really connected to my midwife. Like we were on the same page, and she sort of, when my contractions were getting really difficult, she like looked at me and she was like, Leah, she was like, what's wrong? And like, because I think I had this one really strong contraction. And then after I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is getting too hard. And she was like, what is it? And I was like, it's just like, it's starting to feel like it's really painful. And she was like, but is it? She was like, you're doing so well. Like, let's just take each one as it comes. And looking back at it now, I think potentially I was in transition at that point.
Sounds very transition-y.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, like because I'd been managing them, like I'd been able to manage them up until that point, and then it was just I had this big outburst of just like I was like, I'm just done with this. I don't want to do it anymore. And then we got through that, and then I had maybe like another hour of contractions, and then my midwife had said they'd been sort of checking the baby, and because I was in the bath, they were just like checking with a mirror underneath just to see how everything was going. And it got to a point where she said, you might start to get the urge to push. So she was talking me through how I can push, and that it was okay to start pushing now if I had the urge to do it. So yeah, I started to push, and just trying to think of what happened next. I pushed for a while, and I remember mentally thinking at one point after I'd had a couple of pushes in my head, I was like, I think I have less than 10 pushes to go. And I was like, I just need to get through 10 contractions. So in my head, like I had the first one, and I started counting down. And I don't know if I just really got into the zone and forgot about counting, but I never got all the way to one. So I don't know if I forgot to count, or I was right and that I knew I had less than 10 to go. And then, so I was still in the bath, and the head came out, and then the body came out, and then, she was born.
Wow.
So it was
What was that
really,
moment like?
it was amazing. And because they'd said, because at that point I still didn't know if I'd want to get out of the bath or stay in the bath. So they said, okay, if you have the baby in the bath, my midwife was just going to like sort of, because I was leaning forward, she said we sort of push the water so the baby will come up in front of you, and me and Chris could pull the baby out of the water together. So I ended up having her in the bath. So she came out, and they sort of pushed her forward, and I think Chris was just so shocked, and his shocked reaction is to just like have it turn into a fit of laughter. So he was like hysterically laughing like as she came out, and he couldn't grab her because he was laughing too much. So I just grabbed her myself and pulled her out of the water and put her onto my chest. And I think that was really amazing to, like, I felt like it was really all me. Like I did it all myself. I pushed her out, and then, like I was the first person to catch her and put her up onto my chest. And it was just amazing. And we didn't know that we were having a girl. We didn't know what we were having. But I just like had her, and Chris was in, and we were sort of like cuddling, and we were doing that for a couple of minutes, and my midwife was like, do you want to know what you had? Like no one knows what you've just had. We lifted her up and had a look, and it was a little girl, and it was amazing.
Yeah. It always amused me as a doula when people didn't know what they were having and the baby's born, they forget to look.
Yeah.
Like it just pales to, that moment of meeting this little soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And then I guess the next thing, so I had planned on having a physiological third stage, and right just before I started pushing, my midwife said to me, I know you'd planned on having a physiological third stage, and she was like, I'm still happy to support that. But she was like, you've been contracting for quite a long time now, and it might be a good idea to have the injection to make the placenta come a bit quicker.
Yeah.
And by that point, like I was just like,
whatever.
Whatever, I didn't care. Let's just get this done.
Yeah.
And like I really trusted my midwife, and I trusted her
Mm.
advice. So I sort of said, yeah,
Mm.
if that's what you think is going to be best
Yeah.
now,
Oh, yeah.
let's do that. So yeah, I had the injection after the baby was born, and we got out of the bath, and I was sitting on the bed waiting for the placenta to come. And I actually had a student midwife as well, and she was helping with the placenta delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying, like, normally they tug on the cord a little bit to bring the placenta down. And it sort of like 10 to 15 minutes had passed and the placenta wasn't coming. And so she got my midwife and just said, like, the placenta's not coming. What do we do? And my midwife asked if it was okay if she sort of felt what was going on. And she felt the cord and she could feel that it was only just hanging on to the placenta. She said the cord was quite frayed and it was only holding on by a couple of millimeters, and she didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to tug it because she didn't want to detach the cord.
Yeah.
So she was really, I think she felt guilty, and she said, I think we're going to have to get a doctor in.
Mm.
And like my birth space was really dark and really
Mm.
cozy and everything. And she was like, if we get a doctor in, they might want to turn the light on and a bunch
Mm.
of people might rush in. So I just want to let
Wow.
you know that could happen.
Gee, you
Um,
had a good midwife,
she
Leah.
was she was
She's
amazing.
very skilled, and not only
Yep.
working with you clinically and physiologically, but also emotionally. The way she,
Yep.
checked in on you, what's going on for you, how are you? Like, very
Yeah.
skilled. Yeah.
Yeah, she was amazing, like incredible at her
Mm.
job and just an amazing person.
Yeah.
So yeah, she went and got the doctor, and the doctor came in, and he was really good as well. And he said, "Is it okay if I turn the lights on,
Mm. Oh,
instead of
good
just
on him.
rushing in and doing
Yeah.
it?"
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously I said, "Yeah, that's fine." And yeah, he had a look, and he was like, "Yeah, the placenta's just hanging on." And he was like, "I don't. If I touch the cord, basically now it's going to separate. There's no way we can get it out here." And I'd started to bleed by that point as well. So I'd started hemorrhaging. So he was like, we're going to need to get you down to theatre and remove the placenta.
Yeah.
The baby can't come. She needs to stay here with your husband. So I was like, okay,
Mm.
let's do it. And I was really surprised. I was I was really okay with that. Like
Yeah.
it didn't freak me out or anything. Like I was
Wow.
like, yep, let's just do it. So they took me down to theatre and they said I had the choice of being put under or having a spinal block. And I was like, well, if I get put under, how long is it going to take me to wake up? And they said a few hours. So I said, well, I just want to get a spinal block because I want to be awake straight
Yeah.
after because I want to go and see my baby.
Yeah.
So they said, that's fine. We'll prep all that for you. My midwife walked down to theatre with me or wheeled me down to theatre. Um, and we were talking on the way down, and she like we got nearly there and she was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And she was like, you're really calm. And I
Mm.
was like, yeah, like I'm okay. Like I'm definitely okay. Um, it was really strange. Looking back at it now, how okay I
Mm.
was with it. And we got a bit further and I felt like a gush of blood. And I said, I
Mm.
think more blood's just come out. And she was like, that's okay. Like we'll talk to the doctor when we get in there. And
Yeah.
we got in and I had to she let the doctor know that we think more blood had come out. And he was like, that's all right, let's just get the spinal block in. So I had to like sit up on the edge of the bed. And that's probably the bit I was most nervous about. I'm a bit scared of needles, and the thought of having a needle in my spine freaked me out. So my midwife came down and held my hand during it. But when I sat up and screeched to the end of the bed to get the spinal block, I had another big gush of blood,
Mm.
which then like it fell all onto the ground and everything, which was a bit freaky as well. And when that happened, the doctor, he was really good as well. He was so calm, like because he
Mm.
heard it all fall on the ground, and he sort of looked and he was like, "Don't worry, like we've got some blood coming from the blood bank," and he was like, sort of like hurrying other people. He was like, get that blood now, like let's get this going right now. So yeah, the anaesthetist was really lovely too. He put the spinal block in and everything. And my midwife had said she would come down and she would stay with me if I wanted her to. But she was like, once we're in theatre and they're doing this, she was like, I sort of feel like I can get in the way a little bit. So she was like, but if you want me to stay, I will. But otherwise, I'll go up and start finishing off and helping Chris out with the baby. And once I got down there, the anaesthetist was really lovely, and I was like, "Yeah, it's okay. You can go." So she left, and the anaesthetist sort of sat by me the whole time and kept checking in on me, asking how I was, and
Wow.
yeah, and I had the two doctors removing the placenta, and I had said to my midwife as part of my birth plan, I really wanted to see my placenta. I wasn't planning on keeping it, but I just wanted to see it. And as I started taking it out, it was coming out in clumps, and
Right.
they were like, we can try and keep it if you want. So they were really good in trying to
Wow.
honor what I wanted. And
Yeah.
I was
Bless
like, it's
them.
yeah, I was like, it's fine. Like
Mhm.
I'm okay with not seeing it now.
So, Leah, I'm sorry, I have to ask you the question that, going through a long labour, um, getting your baby out here safely, which is a wonderful thing, and then having to deal with that at the end, and you were okay. And I think this is a really important point for people listening to this, because when we think about all the things that can happen, we assume that we're not going to be able to cope with that. And I like to help people to understand that the whole process of giving birth is really an upgrade. It's an upgrade of the body, the mind, the spirit. And we're so much bigger than what we think. And I often talk about the mother spirit, which is the bigger part of you. She's the part of you that will do anything for your baby. So going through all of that, why do you think you were okay? Just as you reflect on it now, what's your first instinct about that?
um, I think like I have thought about it, and I don't know. I think I really don't know. The baby was here. And at the end of the day, like I know I said before, that's not the only important thing, but that was the most important thing to me. And
Absolutely, yeah.
she was here and she came here like the way that I'd hoped she would get
Mm,
here. And I don't know, I also, as much as like I wanted to have those first few hours with her, I
yeah.
felt like it was really special that my husband got to do it. And like he'd
Mm,
been so
mm.
supportive throughout like the whole labor and everything. Sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional thinking
Yeah,
about it. But
no, it's a tender time.
yeah.
Mm,
And yeah, so I just thought like it was really nice for them to have that skin
yeah,
to skin
yeah,
for the first few hours. And yeah, I was just so like I just had such a good experience, and I think I was on this like real high from
right.
giving birth that I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's done, she's here, like I'm
yeah,
so happy.
yeah.
It they get to spend the time together, and
You
like
knew
I've
she
had
was
such a good
safe.
experience.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and I was okay, like everything was okay and it had worked
Mm,
out. And yeah, like
mm,
I just felt I was just really okay with how it had
mm.
all gone.
Yeah,
Just was
that's the
really
mother.
happy, I think.
The mother's been born, and she
Mm.
was born in a beautiful way. And you had incredibly sensitive and skillful care, I might add,
Yeah,
because sometimes doctors and midwives can be great clinicians, but they don't appreciate the significance of the emotional state of the mother, and
yeah,
particularly for third stage. So the third stage is birthing the placenta. I mean, historically, that's how we used to lose a lot of women in childbirth, was when we didn't have the safety net that we do now, thank goodness.
yeah,
But the process of that uterus shrinking relies on oxytocin, and oxytocin's the love hormone. So when women feel safe, loved, and supported, that peaks their oxytocin levels, and that's what was going to shrink that placenta and shrink the uterus and then release the placenta. So having not only the love and care of your partner who knew what they were doing, but also the love and care from a midwife and a beautiful doctor and an anaesthetist who
yeah,
were just so respectful was helping you to create the perfect conditions for you not only to deliver that baby safely and seal up those blood vessels eventually and stop the bleeding, but also for you emotionally to make that transition to having to be separated from your baby, recognizing that my baby's okay, it's with my partner, and then being able to adapt. So when you did finally get back to Bubby, what was that like?
Oh, it was amazing. And it was so funny, like as soon as they removed my placenta and I was in recovery, because hadn't had an appetite through my whole labor. Like as soon as that was over, I was like,
Give me food.
does anyone have any food or water? And so they went and found me some stuff. And
I'll
then,
bet you were starving.
yeah, I was so hungry, like
Mm,
instantly.
wasn't
And
it?
then, yeah, it was really interesting. And then, yeah, they wheeled me up to the room, and Chris and our daughter Ellie they were just cuddled up on the chair. And
Oh, what a sight that would have been.
yeah, it was really special. And yeah, they wheeled me in and yeah, put like Chris was like, here you go. So yeah, I got to hold her, and I'd because she like this was maybe like 4 hours after she was born, she
Mhm.
was having that big sleep.
Mm.
So I tried to breastfeed her a couple of times, but she was too
Tired.
deep into the sleep.
Mhm.
And they did check her blood sugars and everything, and she was fine. So they were happy to
Mm.
just let her sleep and not
Yeah, yeah.
rush her to try and have that first feed.
So
Yeah.
tell me, Leah, what did you learn about yourself as a result of this process?
I think I learnt that like mentally I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was. Like I
Mm.
through doing the preparation I did, like I knew physically I could do it. Like women have been doing this forever. So I knew
Mm.
I could do it physically, but I think mentally, like getting through it, getting through like a long labor, and then like the complications I had afterwards, and
Yeah.
just being okay. Like I think that
Mm.
was a really big surprise for me.
Mm.
And like there were parts of the labor that were really hard.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, I'm surprised how I got through it. Like I don't know, I just didn't expect that
Mm.
I would be able to get through something like that and
And do you think that's
be okay.
influenced your, sorry to interrupt, do you think that's influenced your mothering?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the labor was easier than the mothering. Like I feel like I got through that challenge easier than I've got through some of the challenges of being a mum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I guess I didn't expect as well, because people generally say, oh, like the labor's the hardest part or it's the
Yeah.
worst day or whatever. But so that was a bit of a surprise to me. But I think as well, there's definitely like a lot of things that I learned while preparing for birth and going through the labor that I've been able to use
Yeah.
in the challenging times while being a mum. And I think like particularly your course, I don't know, I think it just set Chris and I up
Mm.
to be really even. Like he knew that he had all these roles during the
Mm.
labor, like it wasn't all up to me to do it. So I think that that has really influenced our parenting, that
Wow.
he was really involved like right from the very beginning,
Mm.
which I know, speaking to some of our friends, that their partners just feel like, and they've almost been conditioned to feel that way, that
Yeah.
they can't, there's nothing possibly that they can do that's really helpful in labor.
Mm.
They're basically useless, which like isn't true at all.
Oh, no, it
But just
isn't.
no one's
Mm.
ever told them that these are all the things you can do. So I think that has set us up for how we
Mm.
parent, that
Mm.
he was really supportive all through that, and
Mm.
now it's more even as
Yeah.
parents now.
There is research around this and evidence that the more engaged a partner is in the birth process, then that sets them up to be more engaged as new parents.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
definitely
teamwork
for
is
us.
certainly the key, because it's very intense, that new period of getting to know your baby. And
Yeah.
Trying to work out what their cues are and all the things that you have to learn, and less sleep and everything that comes with it.
Yeah.
And, that when women can birth in a way that sets them up, and it's not the type of birth that matters. I always say this, it's what gets activated in you, and you discovered that you're much bigger than what you probably thought. Your observation about, I didn't realize I could be that mentally tough, is a
Yeah.
really good thing to remember when you're getting up for the third or fourth time in a night.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah,
do this. I
definitely.
can birth this baby. I can bloody deal with it. And
Yeah.
so that sets you up really well. So you had quite a journey with your birth, Leah, from having to readjust your thinking at 36 weeks to recognize that I have to be open to the fact that I might need a cesarean,
Yeah.
to have to walk that path, to do what you have control over, to surrender what you don't have control over, to then having to cope with my baby's a lot later than what I expected. So those last
Yeah.
few days of pregnancy must have been hard for you to adapt to mentally,
Yeah.
to going into labor, having quite a long labor, but ultimately under your own steam, all of it under your own steam, being incredibly well supported by skillful and respectful health professionals. Gosh, that makes a difference. And having that relationship with your midwife, I mean, we cannot underestimate the power of continuity of a known midwife, or having someone who you have a relationship with, who you trust, who could then make the call about you needing some extra help to birth your baby, to birth your placenta,
Yeah.
is really powerful. And then dealing with a postpartum hemorrhage. You went through a huge journey to get your baby here. Is there anything you'd like to say to people listening to this today? Is there anything you want to finish off with?
I think just like I always say it to anyone I know who's
Mm,
pregnant, just reminding them that like they can do it, and it
mm,
it doesn't have to be this horrible thing. And generally I'll say to people like if you can do any extra prep
mm.
or any extra classes or anything like that, I would really recommend it because I think having that knowledge is so important.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
in case things do change or during the labor, like sort of knowing
Mm,
that this is normal, my body is meant to do this, or
yeah.
if this doesn't happen the way that I thought it would, well, what are
Mm,
the other options?
yeah.
And I think as well, if people do try to project like negative birth stories, feeling, I think you should feel that you can say, no, I don't want to hear that.
Mm,
Because I think having that positivity around you before you give birth just makes such a difference in
yeah.
your mindset, and it's so important.
Yeah. Absolutely. I absolutely echo that. I think giving people permission to say, please don't tell me your birth story. It's
Yeah,
going to be helpful because every story is different. But the
yeah,
question you can ask people who come at you with their and wanting to share their experiences is, what did you learn that helped you? That's what I'm really interested in. And
yeah,
that's a great question because it helps people to think about and reflect on, well, what did they do that helped them to get through that? Because we always find resources, ways of thinking. I loved your the section where you talked about the contractions at the end and thinking, okay, I've only got 10 more to go. And that's a great mind tool to keep you pushing on, pushing on, pushing on.
yeah, yeah,
People who
definitely.
exercise do that stuff, and it's the same for
Yeah.
labor.
And it's so interesting because like I know like my own mum was someone who has said like labor is really painful and it's really
Mm,
hard and everything. And when I started talking to her about it and talking about like birth trauma and how like so many women experience it,
mm,
and then she started to like think about her own births and had said,
yeah.
"Oh, I think I actually did have some trauma like
Mm,
from my births." And I think just opening that conversation up,
yeah.
and it really can flip
Wow.
the narrative or make people think a little bit more about
Yeah.
what they're projecting onto other people and
Mm,
their own experiences and why they might
mm,
have felt that way.
yeah. Yeah. It's, we've had many generations of women feeling very disempowered during birth,
Mm. Yeah.
and not where we've treated women like cattle, where we haven't
Yeah.
appreciated how important it is to protect her emotional state. When my
Yeah.
mother had me, she was put in a room on her own and told not to make too much noise.
Yeah.
You know, she had no support at all. She was 20 years old and just
Yeah.
didn't know anything. So,
It just
yeah,
breaks your heart
it
thinking
does.
about that. It's
Yeah.
just so terrible.
Mm.
Yeah, and it still happens.
Yeah.
But I think as well, maybe something else I learnt about myself during my labor was that I can advocate for myself, and
Mm.
like during the procedure to remove the placenta, the doctors were obviously up the other end, but I asked questions during it, and I think
Yeah.
at the start they were sort of like, "Oh yeah, of course you're still here, you're awake," and but like because I just felt like this is my body, I've just done this, I'm going
Yeah.
to ask questions, like I
Yeah.
that's my right, and I can advocate for myself.
Yeah.
I'm not just going
Beautiful.
to, yes, sit in a room quietly while you
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. They're not just dealing with a vagina, they're dealing with a
Yeah,
woman attached to it.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Oh, look, Leah, thank you so much for sharing your story. There was so much gold in there for people listening. You know, we can birth differently when we bring a whole different set of understandings, tools, helping partners to be prepared, and to really working with our mindset, and particularly our subconscious, which is what the container that holds all of our fears. So by doing that and working through that, we can bring the best version, physiological version of ourselves to the birth, an emotional, spiritual version of ourselves, and be ready to make that transition into parenthood, because that's where the real action is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing so generously your beautiful story, Leah. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Tracy, for having a platform to do this.
Thank you. See ya.
See ya.